How did you approach this? Well, Shaun first, in terms of your character, was it a bit intimidating taking on?
No, it wasn't, to be honest. It's like I've said previous, each time you work, obviously, there's a slight degree of, anticipation and anxiety, but in terms of this, I know what you're asking, and I didn't have like a massive knowledge of the character prior to me being offered the job.
Sure.
Which is brilliant because it means I escaped any kind of anxiety about it. It just came like any other job, where you have to try and do your best and do something that's interesting.
So you didn't sit down with, umpteen box sets and plough your way through every episode?
I don't think that would be useful, to be honest. I don't think that would be useful, and I think when I first got offered the job as well, I was like, we were all very candid about it. I wasn't willing to do an impression, and if that was what the guys who were making it were after, then they would be better looking elsewhere for that. We all seem to be on the same page, and so then it's something that you create yourself then, or the team creates, rather than trying to give you a facsimile of something that's gone before, because where's the interest in that?
And is there anything in the early books of Dexter's about Morse and his early years? Is there a lot of that? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of references towards things. Yeah, there certainly is. Yeah, and we've tried to remain as true to that as possible throughout these stories.
And did Colin have any involvement in this series, in the writing of it, Roger?
I don't. Not so much in the writing of it. Someone else writes it, but Colin's always there, and he's one of the very important people in the room, one of the last people in the room to give the current script approval.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so he, I think, as Shaun mentioned earlier, out of a kind of courtesy to him, really, because is he as executively involved in it? I don't know whether he is.
No,
I'm not sure that he is, but, it's his creation.
Of course.
So the feeling is, I suppose, that he's got to have input and give it his approval.
Because I know initially there was a couple of lines, maybe only one line, about him not being that keen on the idea of a prequel, but clearly he's had a change of heart by the sound of it.
Well, isn't the story actually more, I think that he had been approached about it, wasn't so interested, but was been approached about doing something different, but then said the only way we can do it is if he makes a short story of a prequel of his life just after university. I think that's what actually happened.
Oh, I see.
And so that's where the idea
right.
came. That's where the idea came from.
And so where did Thursday come from?
I think Thursday came from Russell Lewis.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah.
He's a great character as well, I think.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Did he give you much to go on with him, or did you off the script? Or?
Well, only the script of the pilot to begin with, but over this series we've worked out quite a lot of backstory really to Thursday, and that it was his war specifically his war experience, that he'd have been a young copper before the war, that he went and fought in the war, went through fire from North Africa up through Italy, and the liberation of Belsen.
Gosh. It's a really detailed backstory.
Yeah,
isn't it? Does that help you?
The war thing very much did, actually. Yes, more so than policing, actually. Yeah. I concentrated on that because I think that seemed to me to give him his bedrock of his view of life, and his fundamental decency, and also his impatience and ability or willingness to not take any nonsense and maybe cut the odd corner in terms of legality and
we had that in the pilot,
police work. That's what I mean. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And what? Obviously, this is very different from Lewis in terms of the period. What do we know about policing of the period? And have you tried? Has there been an effort to make that as accurate as possible?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's very different.
No real forensic, is there? That's
there's all that side of things. That's not my territory really. Also, just the fact now that there aren't always cars available.
Well, no,
He sometimes has to get the bus.
But I think it's John. I think that's
I
kind of
think
what
that's a
makes,
story in
Yeah.
some respects.
but I think that's what makes it interesting as well. Though.
Yeah.
Like the
Because-
art of conversation, the idea of actually conversing and thinking thoughts through, having a conversation about them rather than quickly sending a text or quickly googling something.
Yeah.
That's what makes these particular stories interesting, I think.
Mm. And I loved all the puzzle stuff and the hymn numbers in the first. Is it going to be more of that, and lots on the crossword, of course, which is all.
There's always like a cryptic element to them because I think that's the way this character's mind works. So obviously he's going to be solving things and looking at his life in that way. So obviously those things are going to be there. Plus like an imaginative and intuitive way, but yeah, certainly those things feature throughout.
And are you a fan of crosswords?
No, I'm terrible at them.
That's probably a good thing, isn't it? And what about the other thing about Morse, of course, is he's not terribly functional when it comes to women. How does he get on in these 4 episodes?
Well, I think that's something that continues because if you think about it, what you're saying is the character from a 50-year-old man.
Yes.
That was my first introduction as well through the books. And what was interesting to me was how, if we were going to make a few of these, how we were going to get from this age now to that age, given the little bits of backstory that we're fed in the books. How we're going to create that and why this person is still single at 50 and ultimately dies on his own. And I think that we've achieved that in the stories of these 4. So that is what's interesting as well to me, the idea of conflict with these women and the idea that he can't.
So is he a little bit more functional in these 4 and then something happens? I'm almost...
Well, I think actually as each story goes on, a little more is revealed about his past. And that gives you a little insight into the way and why he is acting as he is in terms of his relationship towards women in these stories.
Isn't it wonderful that we've got this character, this detective, and we're now building almost this sort of completely real life, aren't we? I mean, it is extraordinary. No other, I suppose, apart from Holmes, where we're building up such a picture of this person. I mean, that must be great as an actor.
It's incredible. But then each job that you do or each part that you take, all of that is going on anyways. It just so happens that this has kind of got a lot of interest, or it seems to me it has quite a bit of interest. So yeah, but each part you play is kind of is like that anyways. I think for me at least. Me.
And
You're doing that. It's just that this one, I suppose. I mean, what Shaun's saying, which I'm agreeing with, is that we always do that in various different ways with whatever we do. But I suppose the unique thing about this is that this character has already had legs.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
So I suppose.
But we give you an even fuller picture of it now, which I think the audience will really love. I mean, tell me about how you sorted out your own relationship as characters in between you. I mean, because there seems a nice chemistry between you.
That's something that just is in the script and just falls into place, I think, really. I mean, I think Thursday sees... I think he can, I think Thursday sees in him someone a bit lost and sensitive, but interesting. And I think I think he sees that it would be good to have that different, more cryptic imagination in the room, in the police station, bringing to bear, their intelligence and their imagination on solving crime. Although also he sees that he wants to try and ground him both in police work, in the kind of fun, the more boring aspect of police work, but also perhaps as a human being a bit,
Because of course, in a police station, someone like Morse is a completely odd egg, wasn't
Absolutely.
he? Just. I think that's really well done in it. He does seem like a total outsider.
Yeah. But I think that's what's interesting about this character as well. He is kind of out of joint with his time and with his surroundings. And it seems to me is always kind of slightly, or has been always slightly out of joint. And that's great to play.
Yeah.
So.
But for an audience, it's just lovely to hear the music again, and the bits of opera and stuff like that. I mean, that really, it's very atmospheric. Well, I'm calling it Morse, which is, but if you know, for me and for the audience of our generation, I suppose it always will. But
But if we achieve what we want to set out, then we'll also